Right, this should be working. We will. Oh, you know what? Gotta lean over here. Oh, this is not good. Everything is a mess. All right, good thing I'm durable. Gotta be able to plug in my phone so we can see if much of this is working here. That screen's not too terribly helpful. So it says live. Let's kind of. There's some kind of ad. Okay, everything looks all right. Okay, how do I get the chat back up here? It says top messages. I want to change that to just any. Guys, this is what you get for doing as one person requests. Hey, why don't you start at 8 o'clock instead? All right, so we're going to have to wait for someone to come by. Why is this so bright? Three viewers. All right, let's get the lipstick on and get going here. Burt's Bees. Almost dropped all kinds of stuff here. Got a bit of a runny nose. Just been really cold today and of late, to be real with you. I think our audio's okay. The messages are available, and I think we're all really ready to roll here. So let's crack open a little something. I've got a few things planned for us, so okay, now we're down to one viewer. Excellent. Is it two or is it one? I can't really see. Concurrent viewers down to one. Okay, we're great. Let's just go. Yeah, a little tired today, so we're rolling with well, it's got a lot of fingerprints, but yeah, this is a sugar-free Red Bull. That's the way we're doing it today. How you guys doing? The chat is open to subs and members, preferably members. I want to talk about Star Trek. Now, we have a bit of a lull in Star Trek content. If you weren't watching, was it this year when Discovery ended? No one cared. That's why I'm confused if it was this year or last year. I know it's been over a year since we had any more episodes of Strange New Worlds, which is a show that I think I liked more than most people. Some wild shifts in tone during, any given season. There's super dark, serious, laugh infused K-pop Klingon dancing episode, more serious shit. And then I think we left off in like this gal who's like Commander Pike's side chick, but she's a captain in her own right. May or may not be getting killed, is kind of being held hostage. Kind of seems like she's low enough on the totem pole that she might die, but people like her because she's on some other sci-fi show called like Winona Earp, which I haven't seen. So yeah, a lot of questions there. I still have to occasionally kind of think a little about Picard season 3 and how they made efforts to try to get things right with Star Trek. It doesn't feel entirely like Star Trek Next Generation, but boy does it feel as close as we've gotten. in a very long time. The vibe is just right, for the most part. Um, it it does a decent job of trying to work in the member berries. The callbacks aren't too much, I feel like, in that case. There's some time between them. Uh, but yeah, it's also unfortunately Picard season 3 at the same time. Why couldn't they have just uh, called it Enterprise D, the series? Like, act like Picard wrapped up with season 2, because now we really don't have that many recurring characters across all 3 seasons of Picard. It feels like we should have gotten rid of Picard as a show and now told this different story. And, how the Enterprise D gets put back. Though I guess the title would kind of give things away. Though as you're watching, you could be thinking, oh, it's about the crew of the Enterprise D. Oh, okay. Oh, wait, they brought back the ship. So, yeah, that would have been something. I think we're a long ways away from seeing any kind of movie in the Star Trek realm. The weird thing is that as Star Wars goes to TV, but it's actually streaming, Star Trek is more at home and better suited for episodes, streaming series, TV, even first run syndication, because it's been there. It has gone where someone has gone before. Star Trek. Star Wars shouldn't be in that lane. Star Wars is better served as movies and video games. Almost that. I never got into the books, and I would wonder if the books are do something to fuzz up the material and try to confuse viewers of the canon and things. So I would say even in book form, Star Wars didn't need to be. It's more special if you had to wait for a film. We just had some episodes drop of the new Star Wars series, the one where it looks like Skeleton Crew. The kids appear to be doing a Goonies thing with Jude Law, and they have neighborhoods and the like. What does Star Trek have coming next? Well, that would be the Section 31 movie coming out near the end of January. I have started just a couple seconds of the trailer, and I cringed immediately, but we are going to do a live reaction to that to the one viewer watching. So let's get in on that, and let's see if this doesn't freeze up. Aha, cool transition. And look, I might hit pause to comment.
Okay, ladies, now let's get information.
All right, we're already pausing. Okay, ladies, let's get information. Why? Her name was like Giorgio or something. Like Michelle Yeoh's character was the captain in the first episode, the only episode I watched of Discovery. And now I heard that she's like the Klingon Empress. I have heard all this crazy shit, and I'm not sure what to believe, but now she's in Section 31, the hush hush, off the books Starfleet stuff. Some people seem to like it, some don't. Some people act like, well, at least it's a callback to Deep Space Nine. So very un-Star Trek like out the gate here. This looks like something from Birds of Prey, Fantabulous Emancipation of Tanya Harding or whatever it is. But that's the way teaser trailers roll, isn't it? Hey, we got to get your attention. Here comes the teaser trailer. Starts now. Misfit content. Oh, that's like a warning, like you're seeing the files.
An emperor can only be loyal to duty. Thus does the empire remain strong.
So,
Thus does.
how long has she been the emperor? This looks like a kid, but is that her as a kid? Oh yeah, we gotta fade to black.
Philippa Giorgio, you're a tyrant who murdered her own people by the
So she has a
millions.
nightclub.
The past always catches up with you.
Very informal behavior here for an emperor, empress.
Okay, ladies, now let's get information.
31 is
Is
a
that
Black Ops
Megan
division.
the Stallion
Spy work. Starfleet is here to make sure no one commits murder.
singing? That is.
idea.
Prove to me you got some coordination.
Yeah. What about any of the Scream Starfleet? Just super informal language. Academy Award winner. Follow up to your Oscar. What's your next starring role? Straight to streaming movie.
bitch.
We can't trust you with our lives, but here we go.
Somebody's got to keep it lively, right?
I swear Michelle Yeoh is younger than she looks.
Now let's get information.
And that's not saying that kindly, to be honest with you. Wow. So that's a thing that happened. At this point, just kind of glad the screen didn't freeze up on that one because we had trouble with the Skeleton Crew last week. It's vague. It's a teaser. I think I am actually more inclined to look at a teaser just to see what the tone of something may be. Because if you watch the full trailer, there will be a full trailer, surely. It will give away too much. Oh, so you're the one they call to well, we have to bring the jewels back to the crest, or like it, and it'll be like, okay, now we're getting way too deep into the plot, and we know who's going to be alive at what point, and who's going to be the core team as their own adventures and all that kind of stuff. I might be mistaken, but did no one recognize any of the characters outside of Michelle Yeoh? I think that was by intent. That we're not bringing over Discovery folk into this adventure. That's my thinking anyway. Chat is open. You're welcome to say something here. I was asked, hey, why don't you start later? And I did. And now it's, a wasteland over here. So that's what Star Trek has in the pipeline. It looks cheaper than Skeleton Crew. But if you look at the amount of money that they're willing to spend on a streaming series, I'm sure that dwarfs streaming movie, right? So there's that to consider. But also, I think either of these, it's kind of a no harm, no foul scenario. Like, look, Skeleton Crew, I'm not watching it, don't really know what's going on over there. But if it doesn't bring in other Star Wars characters to kick aside and, oh, Lando, you're so old and rickety, or anything stupid happen, right? Make anybody look stupid from established Lucasfilm, George Lucas characters, then what's the harm, right? And isn't it really about time Star Wars made something for kids? No, screw that shit. Let's jump on to we have to ignite that lesbian fan base, right? Like, let's get in on that. That was their mission, their priority above making things for kids. Star Trek, on the other hand, they've got a kid show thing, but it's being like moved off Paramount Plus. So it's like, where else could it go? And I think it might actually be going to Netflix. So Star Trek doesn't even have one home right now because turmoil in streaming land. You got to cut costs so that we can do a merger, right? We've got questions coming in. Monty says, what's so appealing about Star Trek? Seems like a boring, less cool version of Star Wars. I would have to assume that Star Wars was inspired by Star Trek. Because what hit show in space could George Lucas have possibly had thought anything of to want to do a space program, right? Star Trek has some interesting things going for it. It's far more rigid and science-based. There is fiction, and boys, they're fiction of late. But Star Wars is really a science fantasy. Or fiction fantasy. There's not a lot of science to it. I think only in the more recent stuff have they mentioned fuel for any of their ships. So there's that. But I actually like the formal nature, the older stuff. For almost all of the films before J.J. Abrams have like a calm, inspirational tone about them. Hey, this is what society could look like if we don't have the internet to distract us, right? Man, sugar-free Red Bull, it hits the spot. Don, is the Star Trek universe more ideal, or is it the Halo society is better? Oh, Star Trek's way more of an idealist situation. The Halo stuff, if you just play the games to a point, you don't really know about the lore backstory stuff that makes it seem like the UNSC are the bad guys, at least to some of the colonists, to some who have to be miners. That the Mjolnir armor, the Spartans, they've done a lot of killing of the insurgents. These people who probably had good reason to insurge. I don't think much of that happens in Star Trek. There's Bajoran rebels or something, Maquis. No, the Maquis thing. There's conflicts, but a lot of times it's within one race. Like, oh, hey, the Klingons are causing trouble. The Romulans are manipulating the Klingons. Like, things like this will happen. But there's not a lot of occasions where Picard sets foot on a planet and goes, oh, hey, we'd like to extend to you an invitation to the Federation. I have some issues to ask you about. And it's like, hey, what's the problem? Why is that man beating that man over there? Ah, no, that's just a slave getting the beating he deserves. Oh. We shall have to talk about this. Tea, Earl Grey, hot. Yeah. There are there's some kind of lesson to learn, or a parable. There's something like that happens in a Star Trek episode. You can't fit Star Wars to that format. Star Wars going completely episodic would be pretty trash. Even if it was, let's see, I said Star Wars, right? Let's make up a Star Wars show that's episodic. Star Wars Rebel Scum, or no, Star Wars Contraband. And you have to follow a guy who's not Han Solo, but he's basically Han Solo. And he does a job each episode. And he meets like a few throwaway gals that he used to have a fling with or something. I don't think it would entirely work. You would be getting outside of the Star Wars style storytelling. So a lot of it would be like, why bother with this if it doesn't involve the Skywalkers, or coming up next, the damn Palpatines, right? So yeah, there is appeal to both. And growing up, I didn't have, I wasn't really swayed to like one or the other, but I think I watched Star Trek stuff first. I'm pretty sure of it. At least the first, the original series. I'm pretty sure I watched all the original series episodes before seeing any Star Wars. And mind you, Star Wars was completed before I was born, so the opportunity was there. But that Star Wars you had to rent on VHS. They were showing Star Trek TOS stuff late night on TV, every damn station, whatever. Yeah, well, let's run a show from the 60s and syndication in the 80s. Makes sense, right? Don, what caused the downfall of the Sci-Fi Network? Don, why are you not a channel member? We talked about this. Come on. Well, for one, because rebranding yourself as Sci-Fi does not help. It doesn't. Is it even a destination for sci-fi? They never could pull all the sci-fi people actually were watching. Like, wouldn't all the Star Trek be suitable on the Sci-Fi Channel? Would that not be a great destination for it? Instead, CBS is over there like, haha, that's ours. You can't have it. I think that they got outside of things. They tried to do the reality program Face Off. I watched way too much of that. Your challenge this week is to make a creature that represents one of three elements: earth, fire, water. It's like, wow, we're doing this challenge again. Like, yeah, and you got that Patrick Tatopoulos. He goes off and marries the host of the show, and she's only there because her dad did the TNG makeup, Star Trek Next Generation. But Patrick Tatopoulos marries her, all the while still designs creatures that look exactly like him. The guy I'm talking about, he made the Underworld stuff. I think they even let him direct an Underworld movie. But look at Patrick Tatopoulos and pull up a picture of Godzilla 98. And you'll see what I'm talking about. This guy. Man. Yeah, Sci-Fi got a little too far away from their branding. You know what? If they would have kept Saturday Anime, maybe extend the library a little bit, that's what got me into watching the Sci-Fi Channel, was to be like, whoa, this is some crazy cartoon stuff they're not showing on Nickelodeon. That was pretty appealing to me. So, yeah, getting rid of the things that were unique to them didn't help in the long run, right? And then they had some original content. Let's see, Farscape, was it? Heard decent things. I think I tried to watch a few episodes, whatever. All right, now you're saying what caused the downfall of sci-fi shows? Expensive, and also consider that if you try to do some of these first-run syndication, it comes out weird at times. Like, was it Andromeda with Kevin Sorbo? I think that might have been a first-run syndication thing. Star Trek Next Generation is like the only good show that plays the first-run syndication thing. I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles may have started that way for like a season, I think. But there's not a lot of hits in that first run syndication stuff. Usually a bigger budget, a studio behind it that has a channel, and the sort of stuff's necessary. There's way too much having to build the backstory. I'm trying to think of what's a more recent sci-fi show, and the only thing I can really think of is like even 10 years back. The Sci-Fi Channel had a show called Defiance that had a video game to tie into it. And I mean, that's pretty ambitious. This was about 10 years back, 2013, I think. Pretty ambitious to do the video game thing, especially when not everything was getting a video game by that point. It's not the Super Nintendo days. So Defiance had all these different factions. You know, they're calling them House, right? House, whatever. I don't remember. House of the Pale People. What? And they're saying House because they're trying to get you to think about Game of Thrones, where everything's a house over there. It's like, whoa, hey, that reminds me of something I like. That's the way that works. And it was kind of a mess. It looked pretty cheap, right? But people couldn't care about it. It wasn't based on some established property they care about. It wasn't like there was a hit video game for 10, 20 years and then they made a show. That's the way Halo screwed shit up. Taking way too many liberties instead of doing the safe copy paste thing that would have pleased fans, right? I guess Fallout has some advantages there because it's not like you have to stick with one character to experience the Fallout story. So because it's kind of like you're playing as your character, they can make up their character for you to watch instead of you having to experience things as Master Chief and then being disappointed that he has his helmet off most of the time. So, all right, why do I have such nostalgia for the 90s and early 2000s movies, TV shows? Was this prime entertainment in our time? Well, the collective consciousness had everybody watching that stuff. I don't think that kids born today could even have nostalgia for what's happening now because everybody's watching something different. There's way too many creators around. Kids don't watch TV. They're not guided to a destination. They're watching some streamer play some game. I think that there might even be more kids watching games than playing them at this point, which is very bizarre because now the systems and the devices to play the games are fairly ubiquitous. I don't think there's a lot of scenarios where it's like the kids' parents didn't get them a PlayStation 5 because it was too expensive. Yeah, it's expensive. But you had something growing up, right? And at least a lot of things that can be on a PS5 can be on a PS4. So you would have had the last generation if you're a kid today, right? In my time, it was like Sega Saturn. Shoot, that's so expensive. Not even going to ask about that. It's a 3DO, Jaguar. Now I could look back at some of that stuff and be like, hey, I didn't miss much, right? But if we had the streaming technology then, I would have watched people play a PlayStation in 95 when I didn't have one till 98. Now you can play all the games, and kids, instead of playing Minecraft, watch some tweaker play Minecraft for them. Who is going to play the games when Generation A-hole needs to watch the streams, right? Because you can't get the Zoomers to play the games. Crazy. Why aren't there more serious ones anymore? Stargate, yeah. Battlestar Galactica, yeah. I mean, these are things that made money, right? Okay. Sci-Fi Channel had Battlestar Galactica. They tried to do some spin-offs. It didn't take. What, Caprica? Yeah, so, and I think Stargate moved to Sci-Fi Channel, or was that a first-run syndication? It started on Showtime, and then it moved after a season. I'm trying to recall how that went down. Expensive stuff. To Stargate's benefit, hey, based on a hit movie, if you can remember it, but a different cast. Battlestar Galactica, hey, do you vaguely remember this property from the 70s? Well, we're redoing it, but it's going to be serious. So, properties people are familiar with definitely helps. Yeah. Would you rather be a captain of a Starship Enterprise? I mean, you recognize that there are multiple. Or a Grand Moff in the Empire in Star Wars? The Grand Moff thing means you're definitely the bad guy. The Grand Moff is the leader of the governors, essentially. The Moffs are the governors. You're still likely to get choked out by the Emperor. You probably don't have the powers. It sure didn't seem like Tarkin had any powers, right? The power of foolhardiness. I mean, he had that going for him. The problem with being on any of the Enterprises, every episode almost everybody dies. But being the captain, you're probably not that guy, right? Someone's going to get killed at random because some alien was just being careless and wanted to see what death was like, right? But the captain usually gets by, so I'd take captain of an Enterprise, sure. Would you rather have 100,000 subs demonetized or have the powers of invisibility for 1 week? So, wait, you're saying you have 100,000 subs demonetized for 1 week? Or you're invisible for 1 week? At that rate, I'd probably just go with the invisible, though you really have to be careful crossing the street. Yeah, there was this Invisible Man movie thing from like the 40s or so. And it was weird because it was like, because he's invisible, he can also fly. Yeah, one of these Universal monster movie things, right? Like Wolfman, Frankenstein, all that. The Invisible Man would fly, but he shouldn't have the power to fly. His power is being invisible, but just because you can't see him doesn't mean he can be anywhere. It's not really the same thing. Schrodinger's invisibility, right? Why does Disney series feel like a Marvel movie with 1,000 terrible jokes and they all look the same? Because they can't take anything seriously. I'm not really sure what it is over there at Disney, but they really struggle to take things seriously. They either have to have their princess or their jokes. They can't really do the drama under the Disney umbrella right now. They aim for the humor. They have too many characters that realize the situation's unrealistic, and they like to point that out to you. So I think that's kind of what's happening over there. I don't think that their CGI is always terrible on their shows, because if you compare it to what you would have seen as a series on TV, not that there's a lot to compare it to, but I guess you just have to look at Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on ABC. How does the CGI in that stack up to what they're doing with She-Hulk, right? Watch that first episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You'll see what I'm talking about. The flying Corvette looks heinous. That's TV budget special effects. We were advanced beyond that point on the streaming stuff. Got to give them that credit. Is it harder to become a successful movie star or a successful comedian? Probably harder to become a successful movie star, because what do you even consider a successful movie star now? Tom Cruise, a shitload of other people going straight to streaming. These movie stars are auditioning for parts. Something to think about there. There was some story about a week back where they were asking about the casting rumors of somebody. And it's like, oh, did she audition? Or did you just give her the role? Oh, she auditioned like everybody else. It's like, yeah, these people are not a big deal. So if there's only, 1 or 2 movie stars going, then yeah, it'd be way harder to be a movie star. Why did you stop doing stand-up full-time? In the area, there's just not a lot of opportunities. I'm trying to get the Christmas party gig thing going, but I don't know what the deal is right now. The weather's good. Be a pretty ideal time to do some stuff. But then you end up with scheduling. It's like everybody wants to do their Christmas party on a Saturday. And then they realize, oh shit, Midwest, Wichita, not a lot of comedians capable of doing this. So I think that even thinking that, and before they go looking, they just assume that they couldn't get anybody. So then they don't ask. So why didn't you go on a comedy tour? I did join a tour for a couple of stops in 2022. Zane Lamprey was coming through the Midwest, hitting breweries, and doing comedy at breweries. So I did a couple of shows, Kansas City, Wichita, with him. And I mean, pretty good operation. Before merch sales, he was probably pulling in like $8,000 a night, doing one performance at a venue, $8,000, and that's just tickets. So, not too shabby. Now he did have, some people helping with the production and stuff, so that'll cost you a little bit. But you hit like a 50 city tour going that way over the course of a summer. Yeah, I mean, he was probably bringing in $1 million on the tour, before taxes and whatever else there, but that's not even counting the merch, which his merch was way more vertical integrated. He's got this company, Plebe, I think they're going by now, and where everybody else is making their shirts like print to order from like Teespring, yeah, or Printfection or something, right? These other groups. But if you actually own the merch company and like you had your wife running that's how you get some stuff going. On the other hand, sure helps if you had a cable, no matter what channel it was, if you had a cable show in the 2000s, you will have enough of a base to make that 50 city tour. If you don't, you're going to have millions of subscribers and followers on Twitch to try to justify going to a city and having people there who are familiar with you, who will then buy the ticket. Because otherwise, if you're a complete nobody and you have to prove you're important, then you have to bring an audience. Hey, call up all your friends from high school. Can you make it? It's like, hey, I already saw your jokes. It's about all you could do. So it's bad. Not super Star Trek related, but Why do you seem disappointment in life? It seems like the order you are on, the more bitter. I mean, that's what we do here. Everybody comes laugh at my misery. The order I'm on. Yep. What streaming service has the best TV series with good stories? Speaking of streaming series or platforms, are we saying platforms or services? I hate that people are saying TV, really, but my Paramount Plus was coming due. I bought a year Black Friday 2023 and got a year at 30% discount. So it was a year for $80. And then it's like, hey, okay, December 4th, it's renewing for $120. I'm like, whoa, we're not doing that. Yeah, in last year, I haven't even had a Star Trek show. So what are we doing, guys? So as I move to cancel that, it says, wait. We'll give you this one-time 50% discount. I'm like, well, a streaming service that has 4K HDR support with no ads, the Paramount Plus Showtime stuff, for $60 for a year, I can't really say no to that. Because $60 is about the price of Deadpool and Wolverine on DVD. Okay, 4K Blu-ray combo, whatever, but if you had $1 billion, would you still live in Kansas or become a passport bro? Yeah, I'd probably stick around here. There are billionaires in the area several times over. Every city's got theirs, right? But we've got one that has like $50 billion, probably way more than that now, seeing as how all the rich people got crazy rich during lockdown. So, I mean, there certainly are reasons to live here. Look at what happened to CEO of United Health Alliance or whatever. Got gunned down in New York City in the morning. And then I see Inside Edition talking about, it's like, oh, I'm just so shocked. Like they had this security expert. I'm so shocked he didn't have any personnel with him. Well, how many would you expect him to have? 10, at least a group of 10. I'm like, what? So a non-famous guy who's the CEO of a company, not the founder, chairman, richest guy involved, should have a security team of 10 to go walk down the street. I mean, if anything, this is telling you how unsafe it is to be in New York City, which I wouldn't walk at any time of day, to be real with you. The Wicked movie has made over $373 million. Why is it so successful? Well, one, you have the lack of competition, but you also have a kid demographic. There has to be something that's going to please the kids this time of year as we have a Thanksgiving weekend, which makes for opportune time for kids to go see a movie. And it'll, stick around in theaters long enough to go through the December. The Red One wasn't the answer. I mean, nothing in that looked particularly appealing. What really rubbed me the wrong way about Red One, not beyond Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson having no self-awareness. You had that polar bear, and it's like, oh, you're a naughty lister? Like I'm watching you. I think he went like that, right? Mimicking Robert De Niro in Meet the Parents. Not a kid's movie, but that's what you can do. You can reference a movie from 24 years ago, and that's what we thought was appealing enough. We need to put that in the TV spot. Oh man, I need to see Dwayne Johnson have to go straight to video in the worst way. Not the way he's managed to do it, where it's like Red Notice, where it's like, okay, fine, I'll make a movie that's not going to theaters, but you got to pay me $20 million up front. Not in that way. I want to see him slum it. This is a guy who's the biggest movie star in the world and doesn't have a good movie. So there. Will Kraven the Hunter at least make $300 million next week? Its budget is $130. Jesus, I forgot. I had seen promotional stuff about it. I just didn't realize it was that close. Is that the movie I need to go watch? Or should I try to hold out and watch Nosferatu, which I don't want to for two reasons. One, Lily Rose Depp, and two, William Dafoe has already done this. William Dafoe is Nosferatu, was it Max Schreck, the actor's name, in Shadow of the Vampire back in 2000. And now he's in that story again. It's like this crap where it's like, hey, we rebooted James Bond, but we brought Dame Judi Dench back to be him. So is it a reboot or not? I questioned this for several years, going, well, maybe it's not really a reboot. I mean, you did bring back one of the people. So what does this tell you? Craven, man, that is going to be a really tough sell. Obscure character. Surprisingly, the Venom stuff had its moments to shine at the box office. I'm seeing that it's wrapping up its theatrical run, and it's this latest one, The Last Dance, and it's made the least money of the Venom films. But wasn't it number one at the box office for like 3 or 4 weeks? That's kind of crazy. And then you're going to tell me it made the least amount? Venom Let There Be Carnage was garbage. It looked cheap. It was terrible. Nothing good. And that made more money. And that was like during a lockdown possibility time where people are getting back into seeing the theater. So yeah, Craven, man. Well, I didn't think that Alien Romulus would make the 200 million. And I guess it made, 300-ish million, right? I think that's I have to wonder though, do the novelty popcorn tins count in that total? And if so, if Craven doesn't have a novelty popcorn tin to force a $50 ticket on the more hardcore fans to make up for the other 5 that aren't going to go see, I don't know. But then again, 300 million typically doesn't look like a runaway hit these days. Even at a $130 million budget, it's hard to say. I'm going to say no, it doesn't crack 300 million. I'm just going to go that direction with that. Why are the Marvel movies so expensive, with even movies like Craven having a budget over 100 million, even though most of it's CGI? I think Craven probably has the issue of needing to possibly pay Disney on top of what Sony is working out. Like, Sony like loaned back Spider-Man for the MCU stuff, right? So I wonder if they have to pay extra to, you don't want to pay a ton of money to have NBA basketball on ESPN, but you have to, because if you don't have live sports on ESPN, you've really given nobody a reason to watch. So whatever it's like a ransom note. It could be the case here, where Sony had to pay so much money to keep this license going that they're kind of working that into these budgets in a way. I don't know. Does it have big stars in it? If I'm trying to think here, isn't Craven's dad or something like a big star? I'm gonna look real quick here. Craven cast. Oh yeah, indeed. Let's go over to that. Yeah, so you got Russell Crowe there. And he's in that direct-to-video purgatory in ways. Land of Bad. I think that was a limited run in theaters, if that. I did see an ad for it on YouTube. I'm trying to think. Yeah, there's possibilities here that these are not huge names. I think most people are not that familiar with Aaron Taylor Johnson, despite his PR team trying to convince you otherwise. So, yeah, I kind of just think that I mean, look, it's hard to judge, but is Craven more niche than what was Jared Leto's vampire thing? If they're going to let Jared Leto be Joker, why is he also allowed to be another comic book character? Morbius, right? It's Morbin time. Craven might be even more obscure than Morbius. So what the hell are we doing, right? CGI is expensive stuff. They have to get somebody to do it. They get a lot of people to do it. So, yeah, a lot of budget can be in the CGI, and it'll a lot of times go unappreciated. What made South Park so popular? Pushing boundaries in the 90s. The stuff they're saying in 1997 is super edgy, and no one else was doing that. Now we have everybody saying similar stuff online and no one's paying attention. What made The Simpsons so popular? You know, their brand of being edgy in the late 80s, early 90s, pretty similar. Not nearly as edgy as South Park, but edgy in its day. So Fox was really at the front of trying to be edgy to draw in viewers when they created their network. They had Married with Children, way edgier than the sitcoms happening over at ABC for the matter, right? So, yeah, I mean, it just kind of helps that the edginess had some appeal, and now you can look back with nostalgia. And The Simpsons seems to dangle the member berries as pop culture stuff goes. It works in the pop culture stuff, but now they don't have the talented staff they once did, so it becomes poorly integrated. So I don't think people have been watching The Simpsons in a long time. What made Futurama so popular? When Futurama started in 99, right? Boy, neck and neck with Family Guy, really. The Simpsons, that's like the closest thing The Simpsons had to a spin-off or a spiritual successor in a way, something to pass the torch to. And so I think there's certainly appeal there, but also the Planet Express, being able to go to strange locations and just make anything possible, big appeal to that. Bender, very funny, had a funny group. Again, there's appeal to being funny and kind of edgy in a way. But The Simpsons are very grounded to sticking in Springfield. And on rare occasion do they seem to leave Springfield. So you get more stories you could possibly tell when you have a spaceship, right? And then you got all these jokes you can kind of throw back. Oh yeah, those people in the weird 20th century, right? Would you like to be 23 again, but in the year 2000? Would you like to be living during the early? Would you like to be living during the early? I was living during the early 2000s. Man, I was trying to sort through some Spotify playlist stuff, and I was thinking, man, something like even Buttons by Pussycat Dolls. It's what, 2009 or 8 something? No, maybe it's 2004. I think that's a 2004 song. Man, some of that stuff in the 2000s, it's hard to place that stuff was at the same time. Like, look at a song from like 2000, 2001, 2, and then compare that to something that comes later. And it's almost like with the 70s, early 70s versus late 70s, like huge swing. 2010 to 2019, you would have a harder time figuring out, oh, well, that was a late 2010 song. So much. Just weird. I was hoping this wasn't on fire. I'm kind of smelling something over here. Computer's heating up. What made the 90s seem like a cool time to be in your early 20s? Kids were smoking cigarettes, so that seemed cool. You could show that on TV in the movies. kids don't do anything in today's time in anything. No teen does anything that looks cool right now in anything I've seen for that matter. It's like, or at least it's presented in the media almost like there aren't any groups in the school. Like everybody is essentially the theater geek, or everybody has a weak car, or, hardly anyone brings up sports or talks about their grades, just dumb shit. What caused the downfall of Comedy Central? I believe Comedy Central, on last I heard, they got a new president over there and they wanted to double down, triple, quadruple down on animated. So it was going to become like an animated hub. Like they were getting rid of all the live action shows outside of the Daily Show and just going, hey, South Park worked, so is there a comedian who we could put, some kind of animator with and just do something, see if it works? And that's kind of what they've done. That's from my understanding of it. And when Tosh.0, which had great ratings to the very end, got pulled down, I think Daniel Tosh said, I look forward to coming back in 10 years in animated form. So, yeah. What also, like all these TV shows, it's like the internet just beats them. Like, look, or program, right? G4 TV. What good is that compared to YouTube? I think they actually have a YouTube channel no one watches. Like they came back in YouTube channel form and people are just kind of like, well, this is irrelevant. Because reviewing games slightly before other people is not nearly as relevant as you would have thought it would be. Man, I mean, you're way better off talking about rumors in games and calling them woke than reviewing them, even if you can get your hands on them early. They had some great stuff. Cheats, X-Play, Attack of the Show. Man, it brings back my childhood. I never watched most of that. I've seen of. That's about it. I know that Olivia Munn was on Attack of the Show, right? There's other chicks there. But yeah, the kids, they will watch something cheaper. They'll watch that Kai Cenat. What is that his name? Have zany shit happen in his room. They'll watch something way more low budget because it's on the web and streamed live. Like they'll do things like that. Will you truly stop playing video games, or is it just clickbait to watch more of your Twitch gaming streams? How the hell am I going to have people watch Twitch streams if I said I'm not playing games? It doesn't make much. Is Prime Olivia Munn hot? Yeah, probably. Well, it's kind of a weird scenario where her face is better than the rest of her. It's unusual. Why? You keep asking the same things here about Emma Stone, Margaret Qualley. I watched The Kind of Kindness. I think that's on Hulu. I watched on Hulu recently a Ben Stiller Christmas movie of sorts. Vaguely Christmas movie. It's called A Different Vibe for something of a Ben Stiller vehicle. Did I say Adam Sandler? I feel like I said Adam Sandler, but I meant Ben Stiller. But why was Seinfeld so popular in the 90s? Why? I mean, all this stuff was popular in the 90s, right? And you're asking me about it. You were there, weren't you? Seinfeld's hard to answer. It wasn't doing anything the other shows weren't necessarily doing. Topics of conversation, similar-ish, right? But just being funnier than the competition, and then being consistent in kind of knowing what you're going to get out of a Seinfeld episode worked really good. If you could be consistent with your sitcom back then, you hit the jackpot. So, what's your thoughts on the Guy Ritchie as a director? Very eclectic. He seems to have two modes, all of them gangster related. Even if they're not on the surface gangster related, you end up thinking, it's British gangster movie, right? I've seen some of his stuff that I thought was okay, and then other things where I was kind of like, trying too hard to make things visually interesting instead of the story or the characters interesting at times. What made the Avatar movies so successful? I don't see the mass appeal, says Mary. Well, there certainly was a ton of hype, and to get people to think this is going to be the first 3D movie you're going to want to watch, then to be able to sit out this whole Marvel dominance thing, and then when people soured on that, be like, hey, Avatar 2 is right here. Brilliant. Waited out the competition, waited for that era to leave so you could come back and take over. And people, I don't think, are seeing any of those Marvel things in 3D. Are they offered? Is that Brave New World in 3D? IMAX 3D? Does it matter? Do people want to go through that? But they will go through it for the Avatar stuff because it's not a done in post 3D. It is a very specific format of 3D, right? So the Avatar stuff, definitely a cut above when it comes to getting people to pay extra money to go see something. Then you also have the fact that you don't even have the 3D TVs anymore. You have no other way to watch that Avatar stuff in 3D, big screen, than to go see it in theater and pay a lot of money. And they'll justify the ticket. Well, we have to run the bulbs even hotter, so it costs us more money. Okay, that's why the ticket's twice as much, right? Mm-hmm. Why are scary movies like Wishmaster, Halloween 1, Nightmare on Elm Street, and other 80s and 90s horror way better than the junk like Conjuring? I haven't seen Conjuring. There's a few of those that I just haven't bothered to give it a chance even. The Conjuring, Annabelle, Origin, or whatever. There's something similar to The Conjuring that I get confused and think, oh, is one of these the spin-off of it? I don't know. It looks like it has some of the same people. I watched Smile 2 a couple nights back. I didn't even like Smile 1. And then Smile 2 is one of these movies that thinks it's clever by saying, oh, yeah, that was an illusion. So half the movie didn't happen. Forget that. This is happening instead. Clever. And it's not. It's lazy as shit. And the acting in Naomi Scott and this other gal, just the acting starts to fall apart towards the end. And then the creature shows up. And I think they tried to do practical effects here, but they had such a dodgy composite. It looked like the creature was from a different movie. Like it looked like it was from The Substance. Like it was overly bright when it should have fit the scene better. And it looked bizarre. So, yeah, that movie just falls apart, I tell you. Don't bother with it. It was on Paramount Plus. I had just paid $60 for another year of Paramount Plus. So I thought, give this a shot. I'll probably be doing some kind of video on that. What was your favorite show on G4? Never saw them. What would happen is you'd want to see videos about upcoming video games, and G4 was pretty much the only way to go about that. And I know there were times in the summer in the 2000s where I might have come across the channel, but in its heyday, I was probably working at the grocery store and didn't have as much time to check out TV. And there were shows that I missed entirely. I kind of feel like, man, I wish I had seen, like Firefly or The Tick live action, the first go around of it. Eric, finally paying customer here. I still think Star Trek 2, 3, and 4 is better than the Star Wars trilogy. I don't think so, but 2, 3, and 4 are pretty strong. 3, if you watch 3 recently-ish, you'll see it's definitely the flawed of the group. Though 4 is probably the one that ages the most. Set in contemporary 1986, right? It's 1986, isn't it? 1986 San Francisco. And once it gets there, it's very 80s, but probably for the good, because it has a comedy vibe working in its favor, which was a fun, unique way to take this. Then you see stuff about like the documentary. What's the documentary called? I forgot. It had a clever title from the movie, but it was the the one with Alan Rickman and Tim Allen and Sigourney Weaver, Galaxy Quest. The Galaxy Quest documentary had like LeVar Burton there going, "Oh, I saw this," and I was just like, "Oh, why didn't we do that?" If like the third TNG movie, instead of doing Insurrection, was Galaxy Quest, like a weird self-aware parody of Star Trek, and got out in front of it, would have probably been pretty damn amazing. Could that potentially have harmed the brand in a way? At the time, sure, but now we reboot things so swiftly, you can't keep track of what you're supposed to recall from the previous attempt at a movie or anything, so... Star Trek 3. I'm really put off by the way Kirk kills Doc Brown. Forgot his name, but he's got him on this cliff that's fallen apart, right? And Doc Brown's holding onto his feet, and Shatner's there like kicking away at him and goes, "I have had enough of you." And I'm like, how did you know that last kick was going to be the one to take him down so that you could say your spiel? You see what I'm saying? I've had it with you. Like, oh, I already got him with one kick. I had a whole monologue I had prepared I was going to say, but forget it. Let's clip that just so that I can... why? No. I can't clip. I just wanted to remember to make something about that. I'm screwing that up. I gotta write a note here. Star Trek 3 kick villain. Short. Gotta make a short of that. Whoa. Knock some stuff over. What does Vaughn think of the Beatles? Do not like. I'm a big fan, so biased. Abbey Road. The trouble with the Beatles is I actually think their early stuff is their better stuff. Except for like Love, Love Me Do. After that, the rest of their Mob Top early stuff, Uniform Tie, is strong. Then when they're breaking out on their own, I feel like that's when it's proven that they needed guidance. Seriously, Hey Jude, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds can be okay-ish, but most of the stuff I'm told is good from them. It's just like, is this rock? I put Rolling Stones way ahead of them. I have kind of thought about it, and I could probably have no trouble naming 50 British bands better than the Beatles. And I would pick actual rock bands for one. The Beatles sound is kind of unique in that it's a Beatles song in the way that it's a Prince song, or Michael Jackson seems to be his own genre. Like you can identify a Michael Jackson song. So I struggle to call them rock. I don't ever listen to any of their stuff or want to hear it anywhere. When a Beatles song shows up in a trailer for a movie, I know that it's a creatively bankrupt scenario and they threw in, here's something people like. That'll make them like our movie. Yeah, that's kind of just what they do. Yeah, I don't know what's on the Abbey Road or the Sergeant Pepper album specifically, but I probably didn't like any of those songs. I didn't like The Lighthouse as much as others did. I had been meaning to see that. I heard that's the one with R. Pats, right? And it's by the Nosferatu director, this Edgar's guy, isn't it? Or am I mistaken? Uh, I heard that that's in black and white because when they looked back at it and they realized that the uniforms that I think William Defoe and R. Pats are walking around and they look like Mario and Luigi in color. I'm curious to know if that's real or not. You know, if that's actually the case. What made Friends TV show so popular? I'll say a few things about Friends here. They had a trendy group of people, and they're in a location like kind of like fictional New York, but they're at the head of the trends. Okay, they're at the coffee shop before Starbucks is blowing up, so they're there at the coffee shop as Starbucks is rising, which I think has a huge play to it. I think in a way Starbucks takes off because people want to be cool like Rachel and Monica and Chandler, and you know they kind of want to be like that group, so they went to Starbucks to try to replicate that. I think that has a part of it. The Rachel haircut phenomenon was a thing too, that took off, kind of helped it. I think some of them are a little too invested in their own talents in a way. Like David Schwimmer, this article comes out early this year, how he turned down Men in Black. He's like, wow, that was going to make me a huge movie star and all this stuff. And I turned it down because I had a commitment to some people to do like a small off-Broadway show that I was going to fund. And we did the show, and I don't regret it because, you know, it made those people's day. You know, I had a commitment and I stuck to it. And all, okay, great. He acts as though Men in Black was going to be a huge hit with him in the Will Smith role. No. That is 100% requiring Will Smith to be a hit. Why? Here comes the Men in Black. Can you imagine David Schwimmer singing that? This guy is full of shit. The movie would have bombed. His career would have been like a bunch of weird, oh, hey, David Schwimmer's in this also. And that's all you would have got out of it. All right, got to make a note that I want to make fun of David Schwimmer. David Schwimmer, Men in Black. Got to make that note too. Got to come up with some shorts to pepper in while I'm traveling, or if I have to work some gigs, go see some relatives, you know, have something to upload. You guys have got to check out the damn shorts. I know you're not outright alerted of shorts being uploaded. I don't know what the deal is with that, but the shorts get shown to a lot of people. And then you end up in a situation over here where you'd have a much like more people tuning in if you did the mobile way, the way the mobile stuff's set, but then I wouldn't have all the toys, right? And those of you who showed up late, I did a reaction to the Sector 31 teaser trailer. So yeah, do check that out again. I guess we've come to the end of our questioning from the paid customers on the only tier. So maybe we should be wrapping this up. I think we've gone about an hour, and it's not, you know, an hour of total garbage. Answered a fair amount of questions. Maybe I should say a few more Star Trek things. I was trying to get through TOS episodes, and I haven't actually cleared season 1. Now, season 1 of a show in the 60s is going to be a lot more episodes than we have nowadays. I heard at some point they get really bad, like season 3. I've heard from people invested in Star Trek that there's a bad season of TOS. I don't think that we should be looking at TOS and be like, hey, this isn't Star Trek over here, when TOS is very 60s, very camp and goofy for a lot of it. And yet we'll be like, oh, this isn't as serious as Star Trek should be. Yeah, because you're thinking about, oh, all that stuff's not Star Trek. Star Trek starts with the Wrath of Khan, and that's what the Star Trek vibe should be. So then when you think along those terms, you end up with Paramount Bad Robot, whatever, giving you villain of the movie, Wrath of Khan needs revenge against Starfleet again. So they're saying, okay, these guys want Wrath of Khan. Let's give them Wrath of Khan again, right? That's the problem. What's going on here? Did this stream end? Why did it go all the way back on my screen here? I didn't push anything. Yeah, so towards the beginning here, you got the Section 31 stuff, but yeah, if you keep insisting on Wrath of Khan, you're going to keep getting Star Trek Into Darkness, Star Trek 2009, for that matter, Star Trek Beyond. Like, you'll just end up with more of that. So it's kind of good that Star Trek has these series going on, and like, not that they're great, but they're in a lane in which Star Trek can work. Seeing Star Wars in series form on streaming damages the brand. It's not a brand that should have been there in the first place. So there's some feelings on that. I guess my favorite Star Trek show would probably be The Next Generation. I've watched, not that I can tell you a lot of specifics on this, but I've seen every Next Generation episode at least twice, most of them probably 3 or 4 times. But season 1 definitely has issues. It feels like a 60s show in a way. It looks older in a lot of other ways too. Just something about the way the lighting and the makeup's done, and kind of like the way a scene would play out and then lead to a commercial felt more like TOS. Just, you have to kind of be like, oh, the uniforms are different and the set's a little different. But yeah, they had episodes that felt like they were written in the 60s at times too. And that's not a good thing. In about season 3 of Star Trek Next Generation, it really starts to get its legs going. And that's weird to think that that's the way things used to work on TV. Like, it took a while for it to become the thing. It took a while for TNG to become the TNG you remember. And Seinfeld took a while to become the show you remember. So when people look back at the classic Seinfeld episodes, I think most of those are not in season 1. And a lot of them are even after people have determined the show went bad or something. So, I mean, these are things to think about. It looks like all of you have abandoned me, so we will wrap this up as I drink a Red Bull. Yeah, I guess if you're watching it now, you're watching after the fact. So, yeah, you got to get those memberships going. I'm trying to think of some other stuff. I am going to have a post after this to the members, something I'm working on. Something to do with a drink. Not this, but yeah, there'll be a post right after for the members about something I did today. So yeah, made this far, wait until marriage counseling.